Namaskar and welcome to one more episode of What Does This Data Say? You know, these days the news channels and the digital media is all full of an overdose of news about the elections in the coming months for the 5 states. The election outcome in itself is very important for many people. But do you know that between this month or February month and 2024 general election, there is one more very important election going to come up, which many have forgotten about, or it has been in the news as a sideline. The result of these elections also has a great bearing on the upcoming this very important election. So stay with me and I'll tell you some very interesting facts about the upcoming election. Many people say that these elections, which are going to happen for these 5 states, is a dry run or a semi-final for the 2024 general election. Personally, I don't believe in that logic. We all know voters are very intelligent and they vote very differently in state elections and in the general elections. However, the result of these state election will have a bearing on the next important election. The 5 states which are going to polls are given here in this slide. Out of the 4,120 assembly seats in the country, the election is going to happen at 690 assembly seats, which is equivalent to a Lok Sabha equivalent of 102 seats out of 543. So 16.5 or 16.7% voters are going to choose their state representatives in the upcoming election. Now, before the next general election in 2024, there are many states who are going to go to poll, but all of them are in 2023. We have Gujarat, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, and most important, Karnataka. You all know the results of Gujarat and Karnataka, how close they were in the last election. So these states which are going to come to polls next year will also be influenced by the result of the current 5 assembly election results. I think you must have by now guessed which election I am talking about. It is the election of the President of India and the Vice President of India. The President's election will come up in the month of July and will be followed by the Vice Presidential election in August. So today I am going to talk about the presidential election and how the outcome of the polls in the current 5 states is going to affect the presidential election. There has been some news saying that if BJP doesn't win in Uttar Pradesh, then they will lose the presidential election. I will get into all such details. So you stay with me because very interesting results are going to come out of my analysis. Firstly, I will talk very briefly about the process of electing our president. For those of you who know about this election process, please bear with me for a minute. This section is mostly for people who are unaware how our president is elected. Our president is elected by an Electoral College. This consists of all the MPs of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha who are elected, not nominated, and all the members of the Legislative Assemblies of the states. Each member of the Electoral College has a value attached with his or her vote. The value of the MP vote is a constant number, whereas the value of a MLA vote depends on which state he comes from and is based on the concept of proportional representation, which means it depends on the population of his or her state. The baseline for population for this purpose is according to the census of 1971. As an example how the value of a MLA vote is computed, I'll show you this through the example of Andhra Pradesh Assembly, which has 175 members. The population in 1971 was 2.78 crores. We divide this by 1000 and then we divide it by the number of assembly seats, which is 175, and we take the nearest integer, which is 159. So the value of the vote of a Andhra Pradesh Assembly MLA is 159. On similar lines, if you calculate the value of vote for a Uttar Pradesh MLA, the population of UP in 1971 was 8.38 crores and it has 403 assembly seats. Calculating the same, the value of a UP MLA comes out to be 208. Since the number of MLAs are far greater in UP than in Andhra, the overall total value of UP is almost 2.5 times that of Andhra Pradesh. This further means that the states which have a higher population will have a greater say in the election of our president. And this is why UP becomes so important. It has the highest vote share in the country in the Electoral College. Once we calculate the value of the vote for all the assemblies, the total number of seats come out to be 4,120 with a total value for the state share as 5,49,495. This figure I will be using further. So now let us calculate the value of the Electoral College vote of a member of parliament. There are total of 776 MPs. Lok Sabha has 543 members and Rajya Sabha has 233. We just now calculated the value of the assembly votes, which was 5,49,495. We divide this number by 776 and we get a number 708. If we multiply 776 by 708, we get 5,49,408. There is a little bit of difference between the two values, that is of the state and the MP. That is because of a rounding off process. So finally, we get the total vote value for the presidential election. States contribute 5,49,495 and the parliament MPs contribute 5,49,408, which totals to 10,98,903. So that concludes my introduction to the process of electing a president, and now I will present you some basic arithmetic about this issue. Now what is this arithmetic? The arithmetic is very simple, that if the presidential election were to be held today, how many votes would NDA get and how many votes would the opposition get? So first let's start with the Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha, the NDA has a total of 379 seats according to my calculation. BJP is the biggest party with 301 seats. You have YSR Congress with 22, Lok Jan Shakti Party 6, Janata Dal United 16, and then Biju Janata Dal 12. These are the major parties. Rest of them are ones and twos. However, there are some fence sitters who can go and vote either way. One is the independents. There are two more parties. One is the Bahujan Samaj Party and then the Biju Janata Dal. Together they have 22 seats in the Lok Sabha. Now these two parties may jump the ship if they find the mood of the nation is otherwise. So I have put them in a doubtful category. But anyway, for this calculation, 379 seats to the NDA, which contribute a total of 2,68,332 votes. Next, we look at the non-NDA seats in the Lok Sabha, which is the opposition. This group is led by Congress with 53 seats. Then we have the DMK with 24, Trinamool Congress 22, Shiv Sena 19. Rest all contribute a very small amount of seats, in less than 5 seats. This group has a total of 163 seats, which contribute 1,15,404 seats. Again, there could be some fence-sitters in this, like Shiromani Akali Dal, who has fallen out with the BJP, or the Rashtriya Loktantrik Party, but their contribution is insignificant. So, if election for the president were to be held today, here is the Lok Sabha tally. Non-NDA would end up getting 30% of the votes in this election, whereas NDA will win handsomely in the Lok Sabha with about 70% of the vote share. Let's go over to Rajya Sabha. In the Rajya Sabha, BJP leads with 88 seats, followed by Biju Janata Dal 9 and then by YSR Congress Party 6. The total number of seats with the NDA is 125. This is equal to a vote share of 88,500 votes. In Rajya Sabha as well, there could be some last minute crossovers, which I have marked in light blue. The biggest concern for NDA would be Bahujan Samaj Party. The non-NDA votes in Rajya Sabha is a straight century. 100 seats are with them, led by Congress 34 and then by DMK 10. Rest all are again small parties. Yeah, I forgot, Trinamool Congress has 13 seats. So, this accounts for a vote of 70,800. So, now we have the parliament tally of the electoral votes. We add Rajya Sabha and then we see that NDA still leads with 66% of the seats, non-NDA 34%, a little better, but still way behind NDA. This table is not going to change till the presidential election, because the parliament is not going to change. There may be one or two by-elections here and there or a few crossovers. However, the basic structure, the basic numbers is going to remain more or less the same. We now come to the states. These are states where NDA and its allies are in power. These are total 17 in number, from Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, right up to Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh, you can see, is the largest with 403 seats, out of which 315 are with the NDA and BJP. In these NDA states, the total number of seats is 2041, out of which NDA has 1335, which is a 65% share. Still, 35% seats are with the opposition. That point should be noted. We now look at the non-NDA states and the allies in power. They are in power in 13 states, and the total number of seats in these states is 1995. The opposition has 1239 seats, which is around 62%. This number of 62 is almost same as what NDA had in its ruled states of 65%, which means that whichever party is in power, they more or less have 60+% of seats with them. So here is the final tally of the Electoral College votes. If election was to be held today, this would be the final outcome. NDA would have 54% of the seat share, while the non-NDA seat share would be 46. In terms of vote, NDA and its allies will have 58% market share, vote share, and non-NDA vote share would be 42%. A BJP proposed presidential candidate would win very comfortably. So what is the problem? What is BJP worried about? They are worried because the upcoming elections of 5 states is going to affect this result pretty strongly. The Electoral College as it stands today, this table I am going to use further. Forget about the seats now, we will talk only of the vote share. Let's first compute the UP fallout. NDA plus independents today have 316 seats out of 403 with a vote value of 65,728 out of the maximum possible in UP, which is 83,824. If BJP this time and its allies are reduced to 150 seats in UP, this vote value will drop drastically to 31,200, which is a reduction of 34,528 votes. Now this, on the one hand, it gets reduced from NDA and the same votes get added to the opposition. The effect is double. If the BJP does very badly in UP, that will trigger the fence sitters, as they will then not perceive any value with sticking to the BJP and NDA, particularly people like the YSR Congress. They have been all through rubbed on the wrong side by BJP. Then we have the Bahujan Samaj Party, where Mayawati is still to come to terms with partnering with BJP. Biju Janata Dal, who always wants to be on the right side of the power. Plus, there will be many small one-seater parties who may jump the ship. I have not here discussed about Uttarakhand and Punjab. Punjab will go from one opposition to the other at the best. BJP is not going to benefit from that. Earlier it was Congress, now probably it will be Aam Aadmi Party. So I have not factored that in this calculation. So if BJP drops in UP and YSR shifts, BSP shifts and Biju Janata Dal shifts, the total vote loss will be 43,896 votes, which is a very, very big number. So the presidential election verdict then gets revised. Earlier, which was 58-42 in favor of the NDA, now becomes 51-49 in favor of the NDA. Hardly a 1% difference. So it can go either way. So for BJP, it is necessary that it wins UP, and also it has to keep its flock together. These parties with leaders of varying ambition, they can jump ship anytime, and that is what is worrying BJP the maximum. And as I said earlier, I have not taken Uttarakhand yet into account, which may be in a position to contribute a few thousand votes, because BJP is not expected to do as well as it did last time in Uttarakhand. Of course, a lot depends on the choice of presidential candidate. There have been instances that when people have changed their party position preferences and voted against party lines when a very strong or a different kind of presidential candidate has been put up. Many names for the president has started doing rounds, and it is rumored that BJP is already in touch with a few people. Come July and we will all know. It is equally important for the opposition to have a president whom they have backed in the election. So this is all for this week. If you like this episode, I request you to please leave a comment in the comment section and like on the channel on which you are watching this. See you next week. Namaskar.